Somewhere right now, a grown adult is standing in front of a drawer full of watches, wearing the same one he's had on for the last 4 months, telling himself he just needs one more. He owns 20, he wears 3, and he is completely convinced the next purchase is the one that finally finishes the collection. He is lying. They say grief has 5 stages. Watch collecting has 7, and every single one is more expensive than the last. By the end of this, you are going to recognize exactly which phase you're in right now, and you are not going to be thrilled about it. Here's the deal. Nobody starts out crazy. It happens slowly, one innocent purchase at a time, until one day you're explaining to your partner why a watch with no battery costs more than the car parked outside. Every collector walks the same path. Same phases, same excuses, same regret, just shuffled into a different order and a different price bracket. So think of this as your map. 7 phases, from the wide-eyed beginning to whatever the opposite of wide-eyed is. Let's get into it. Phase 1. The Awakening. This is the innocent beginning, the purest version of you that will ever exist. It usually starts with something tiny. You're watching a movie, and suddenly you're not looking at the actor's face, you're staring at his wrist. What is that thing? Why does it look like that? And just like that, the brain worm is in. Next thing you know, it's 2 in the morning, the glow of a phone is lighting up your face, and a stranger on YouTube is walking you through the entire history of the dive watch in 43 parts. You understand maybe half the words. You do not care. In fact, you start collecting the words long before you collect any watches, dropping patina and lume and bezel into conversations with people who very much did not ask and do not care. You buy a simple field watch on a canvas strap, something honest and cheap, and you wear it every single day like it's the only watch that has ever been made. And in this phase, it basically is. You don't know what a tourbillon is yet. You couldn't pick a movement out of a lineup. You think a Rolex is just an expensive watch and not an entire personality. And here's the tragic part. You will never be this happy again. This is the watch equivalent of a first crush, all wonder and zero baggage, before the spreadsheets and the regret move in and start charging rent. Enjoy it. Frame it. It is all downhill from here. You might be in this phase if you've started quietly checking the wrist of everyone in the room, and if anyone asked why, you could not give them a single honest answer. Phase 2. The Hype Chaser. Remember that honest little field watch on the canvas strap? Yeah, it's in a drawer now. Because somewhere in the last few weeks, Instagram got its hooks in. The algorithm decided you have taste, and now your feed is wall-to-wall wrists. A steel Royal Oak catching the light at some rooftop bar. A Nautilus on a yacht that is very obviously not the poster's yacht. A Daytona on the wrist of a man whose entire career appears to be owning a Daytona. And your brain, the traitor, goes, yes, all 3, immediately. Not because you've seen any of them in person, you haven't. Not because you understand why they cost what they cost, you don't. You want them because a screen the size of your hand told you these are the watches that matter. And mattering is the one thing you've recently decided you'd like to do. This is the era of the Grail list, that sacred note in your phone full of dream watches you'll absolutely own one day, populated entirely by watches you've only ever met as pixels. You start using words like icon and hype and waitlist. You develop fierce opinions about brands you have physically never touched. You begin checking prices daily like a stock you don't own, refreshing gray market listings at midnight, doing quiet math about how many months of savings stand between you and a watch you have never once held in your hand. The wanting becomes a hobby all by itself. It is, scientifically speaking, a little embarrassing. But we have all stood right here, scrolling, wanting, broke. You might be in this phase if your dream watch list looks identical to the last 50 Instagram accounts you followed, and the closest you've ever gotten to any of them is a screenshot. Phase 3. The Spender. This phase opens with the single most famous lie in all of watch collecting. I'll just buy one really nice watch and then I'll be done. Every collector says it. Every collector means it. Every collector is wrong. Because the trouble with buying one nice watch is that the nice watch has neighbors, and they are also extremely nice, and now you can see the next tier sitting just out of reach, glittering at you in a glass boutique case. So the budget creeps. The watch you swore was the ceiling quietly becomes the floor, and that phrase, "This is my last watch," gets said with total sincerity for what is now the 4th time this year. To feel responsible about it, you invent a rule. One in, one out, you announce solemnly, as if a watch may only enter the collection when another one leaves. Beautiful system, genuinely elegant. You will never once enforce it. The watches come in. Nothing ever goes out. The rule was always purely decorative. The truly impressive part is the justification engine that boots up in your head. It's not spending, it's an investment. It holds its value. It's basically an asset that happens to tell time. You start talking about watches the way people talk about real estate, as if a steel sports watch spinning on a winder is a retirement plan and not a very shiny way to feel something. Maybe it does hold value. Maybe it doesn't. Either way, you have no intention of ever selling it, so the whole point is gloriously moot. You might be in this phase if you've called a watch an investment out loud to another living human with a completely straight face. Phase 4. The Rationalizer. Okay, stop scrolling for 1 second, because statistically, this is where you are, and I need you to sit with that. The Rationalizer owns 20-something watches and wears, in a strong month, 3. The other 17 live in a leather watch box on the dresser, in the dark, waiting patiently for occasions that are never going to come. And every last one of them has an alibi. This one's so versatile. This one's criminally underrated. This one was such a good deal he'd have lost money not buying it, which, when you say it slowly out loud, is not a sentence that makes any sense. There's a watch for the gym he doesn't go to, a dress watch for the gala he will never be invited to, a dive watch rated to 300 meters, worn exclusively to the office, where the deepest body of water is the break room sink. The Rationalizer is fluent in an entire language made of excuses, and he could happily talk for an hour about why he needs each one. He also owns a watch winder, faithfully spinning automatics he hasn't touched in months, dutifully keeping perfect time on watches that have absolutely nowhere to be. He has a rotation, in theory. He talks about the rotation constantly. The rotation is a fantasy. There is one watch, and then there is everything else. And then there's the test, the one nobody wants to take. Go count how many watches you own. Now count how many you've actually worn this month. Not handled, not admired in the box, actually worn, on the wrist and out the door. For a lot of people in this phase, that second number is humiliating, and the gap between those two numbers is the entire problem. Walking around wearing a strap. We are not judging, we are simply noticing, loudly, with a camera. You might be in this phase if you own enough watches to wear a different one every day for 3 weeks straight, and you've had the exact same one on since roughly March. If you've made it this far without launching your phone across the room, you're my kind of person. Hit subscribe because there are still 3 phases left, and one of them is actually the happy ending. Phase 5. The Curator. This is the wake-up call, and strangely, it's where the healing starts. One day, the Rationalizer opens that overstuffed watch box, looks at the 17 sleeping strangers inside, and feels something brand new. Not excitement, tiredness. And that tiredness is the most valuable thing he's bought in years. Because this is the phase where you finally get intentional. You start asking a question you've spent a fortune avoiding. What is this watch actually for? Some people arrive at this moment gently. Others arrive via a spreadsheet, finally adding up what's been spent against what actually gets worn. And the number staring back from that screen does something no salesperson ever could. It sobers you up on the spot. And when the honest answer to that question is nothing, when a watch is just sitting in the dark being expensive and unworn, you do the unthinkable. You sell it. The Curator builds a collection where every single watch earns its place. There's the daily, the dress watch for the rare nice evening, the beater you'd happily wear into a storm, the travel watch that survives a long-haul flight without any drama. Defined roles, no deadweight. It is calm, it is adult, and it is honestly a little smug about itself. But nobody warns you about the weird grief. There's a very specific, quiet sadness in selling a watch you somehow loved and somehow never once put on, packing it into a shipping box, watching it head off to someone who will actually wear it. You feel lighter and slightly hollow at the same time. That, believe it or not, is growth. You might be in this phase if you've actually sold a watch and felt a real pang about it, mourning a thing that spent its entire life with you sitting in a drawer.
Phase 6.
The specialist. Now things get narrow. Dangerously narrow. The specialist has surveyed the entire universe of watches, every brand, every style, every era, and quietly decided that only one tiny slice of it is real, and everything else is noise. Maybe it's vintage Speedmasters, and now he can tell you precisely which dial configuration went to the moon and which one is a heartbreaking later reissue. Maybe it's German watchmaking, and the word Glashütte does something to him that should probably stay private. Maybe it's dive watches under 40 millimeters, and he will physically wince at anything larger, as if the bigger watch personally insulted his family. The specialist becomes a walking encyclopedia. He can spot a redial from across a crowded room, clock a Frankenwatch in a blurry online listing, and recite the production years of a specific movement like it's his own phone number. He has firm opinions about lug width that he will defend to total strangers on a forum at 1 in the morning. He corrects people who never asked to be corrected. He has typed the phrase, "Actually, that's a common misconception," more often this year than he has said, "I love you." It is all genuinely, deeply impressive. It is also completely useless at every dinner party he attends. Because the same brain that memorized 50 years of reference numbers will, without fail, forget the anniversary, the restaurant reservation, and the name of the person he's now been introduced to 4 separate times. The knowledge is real. It just lives in the one drawer of his head he can always find, while everything important rattles around loose. You might be in this phase if you can date a watch by the font on its dial, but cannot reliably name the month your own anniversary lands in.
Phase 7.
The Enlightened. And then finally, peace. The Enlightened collector has been through every bit of it. The wonder, the hype, the spending, the excuses, the selling, the obsession, and come out the far side with a strange and unexpected kind of freedom. He buys what he likes. That's the whole philosophy. That's the entire thing. The collection is small now, just a handful of watches, and the remarkable part is that not a single one of them sits in the dark. They all get worn. Every one. Because to the enlightened, a watch is a tool, plain and simple. And tools are meant to be used and scratched and lived in, not stored away like evidence in a vault. The final boss move looks like this. He walks into a room full of gleaming luxury watches, wearing something completely humble, something that costs less than the dinner everyone's about to eat, and he feels absolutely nothing. No envy, no need to explain himself, just total peace. People still try to drag him back in, of course. They show him the new release, the limited drop, the thing the whole algorithm is screaming about, and they wait for the old hunger to flare back up behind his eyes. It doesn't. He nods politely. He has seen the entire loop play out, start to finish, and he knows exactly where it goes. Because here's the joke buried at the heart of this entire hobby. In a room full of strangers, nobody can actually tell the difference. And the one person in the corner who could, the specialist, is far too busy forgetting his anniversary to notice your wrist. And the one thing worth keeping from all of this is simple. There is no correct phase. Every single one is just a different stretch of the same road. And they are all a little beautiful, and all a little dumb. But knowing which phase you're standing in right now, that's the part that quietly saves you a small fortune in watches you were never going to wear. You might be in this phase if someone asks what you've got on, and you have to glance down at your own wrist to remember. So that's the journey, 7 phases: the awakening, the hype chaser, the spender, the rationalizer, the curator, the specialist, and the enlightened. A grief cycle with a leather strap, and most of us are bouncing between 3 of them at any given moment while loudly insisting we've reached the 7th. The truth is, you'll probably loop through some of these more than once, because the second you start to feel enlightened, a new release drops, and the hype chaser wakes right back up, hungry. It never fully ends, it just gets funnier. And honestly, somewhere along the way, the point quietly changed when you weren't looking. Finishing the collection was never actually the goal. The goal was getting to enjoy being this completely ridiculous about a small machine strapped to your arm. So the only question left is the honest one. Drop your phase number in the comments, just the number. No paragraph explaining why your situation is different and you're basically already enlightened. We both know that's the Rationalizer talking. Be brave, tell the truth, 1 through 7. And if any of this stung a little, that's just the watch box, settling.